From WLWT, this is Issues, Young Adults Challenges 2017.
Hello, welcome to Issues. I'm Jan-Michele Lemon Kearney of SESH Communications and the Cincinnati Herald. Well, today is part 2 of our program on Young Adult Challenges. We're talking to young people today about drug and alcohol abuse, how they see the problem, what should be done about it. So let me quickly introduce our panelists. I'm going to start with Camille Allen, then Michael Higgs, Leah Young, then coming around to the front, Casey Bell, and then Camri Nelson. Welcome all of you. So we're going to let you introduce yourselves in a minute, but first I'd like for you to see a video by Officer Donald Jordan. Okay, here we go.
Unfortunately, a lot of issues relating to drugs and alcohol is hereditary. Our biggest problems nowadays is not just marijuana, it's the designer drugs, the lean, the mollies, the Percocets. Unfortunately, kids are being introduced to these drugs at an earlier age. Not only are they abusing it, they're witnessing their parents abusing it, which is causing families to lose family members and kids to be raised without their parents because if they're going to jail or they're ODing. Now this is becoming the norm. So our children are being desensitized to even that. Drugs is normal for a lot of these young people, when in reality it's not a normal life to live. We've had paramedics come to schools a couple of times as a result of a kid taking one of these designer drugs and not being able to, our school nursing staff not being able to provide what that kid needs in order to get them back to consciousness. I'd like to see the youth make better decisions, but again, that has to be followed by adults making better decisions in what we put around our children. As a school resource officer, I have a child, and I just make decisions around all the youth that I'm around that, quite frankly, would lead them to do more positive things. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse in my household is not normal. So raising my son that way, it won't be normal to him either. The kids, it would be easy for us to tell the kids what we want them to do. What's most important is that we show them the way. Children don't start off like this. They're emulating someone or something that they see.
Wow, that was disturbing. We're going to talk more about that video, but first let's hear a few words from our panelists. I want you to see who they are. So Camille, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Camille Allen. I'm a student at Michigan State University, and I'm majoring in writing and publishing.
Fantastic. Okay, Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael Higgs. I'm a Howard University graduate, class of 2013, attending Cincinnati State.
Wonderful. Okay, Leah.
Hi, I'm a Walnut Hills graduate and an incoming freshman at Howard University.
Okay, and again, we're going to circle around to Casey in the front.
I'm Casey, mother of 2 beautiful children.
Fantastic. Okay, and Camri.
And I'm Camri Nelson. I am a graduate of UC with a BA in journalism.
Okay, great. Thank you, all of you. So we really want to hear from you about your reactions and your opinions. Always older people are telling young people, here's what you need to do, here's what the problem is. But Jeff Moran, our producer, had a vision. Why don't we ask young people, what do you think? Okay, so let's start with, what's your reaction to Officer Jordan's video?
I think that the youth, they begin to watch adults, and if adults are doing it, then they're going to think, okay, well, I can do it too. So I think it starts there by what they're seeing first. They're going to do what they see. Okay.
All right. So that's, and actually he made that point too, because he was saying in his household, they don't do drugs, so he doesn't expect his son to. But not to say for him, but is that realistic in general? I mean, just because your family isn't involved in drugs, does that mean you're not going to be? I just wonder.
I don't think that's really realistic at all, because I feel like the biggest factor when it comes to drug use is peer pressure, and you emulate what you see your peers doing. And if drugs are glamorized by your classmates, people you hang out with, like your inner circle, then you're going to think, okay, this is fine, this is okay. Even if my parents told me specifically, like, this is not something I should be doing. If I see everyone I know that is my age doing it, then I'm going to become desensitized to it, so I'm going to think it's okay to do.
And is it as a young person, and you guys haven't been out of high school that long, and Leah just finished high school, is it difficult to tell your friends no? I mean, does it make you uncool? I mean, how do young people handle that? You know, all this just say no stuff, you know, is that something that actually works?
It is pretty difficult because when we tell them no, they probably may be dealing with something at home. So, I mean, all we can do is put our advice out there, like, I don't think you should do it.
As a parent, you mean, yeah.
Yeah, as a parent, and when we were in school, I mean, they would probably judge us like, okay, we're the same age, why would you tell me not to do it? And you're probably doing it too, so it's kind of hard when it comes to your peers.
Okay, and you know, let me ask you about the media influence. I don't know, when I was growing up, there was this commercial and it showed an egg, and then they dropped the egg into a frying pan and the egg fried, and they would go, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Okay, so that's an old commercial that, you know, I still remember. I don't know if that had as much impact on me as my parents telling me, you know, don't do it. But there's still commercials now about drugs and drug use. You know, how does that affect young people? Do these commercials work?
I would like to speak about that for a second. At the end of the day, I feel like in this day and age, it's a lot of information. So you have to actually be aware of what you're telling people. So don't try to mislead people and say this is your brain on drugs, fried like an egg. That's not true. We can see it all around.
But that can be true.
It can be true, but it can't be true because why are they doing it and why is it happening if their brain's going to turn to drugs?
Why are they doing it?
So I feel like, I just feel like, one, you just have to educate people on what will happen if you do these things and then show them.
Okay, now I like that Michael said, why are they doing it? Why? Camille, Camri, what do you think?
I think that they are suffering with things in their lives, so they feel like that they can cope with that, but in reality, it's just going to bring you down. So,
Camille, what about you? What do you think?
Well, I think that there are multiple factors that contribute to drug abuse. Some people just want to feel good. Some people want to feel better because they're dealing with stress, anxiety, depression, and sometimes people are a product of a competitive environment and they abuse drugs like Ritalin and Adderall because they think it'll boost their academic performance. So I don't really think that there's one reason why a person might abuse drugs.
Now those are really interesting points, and I'm thinking too, you know, we watch the Olympics and, you know, we root and you know, and major sports. Professional sports is what I'm trying to say, and we watch these athletes do really well. We're rooting for them. Then we find out later they were taking drugs. So do you think that's a message that gets to young people that it's okay?
Yes, a lot of it is because they just want to be a follower, or they think it's popular. Like he said on the video, lean. That's a popular drink. So a teen is gonna, I want to try that lean. I'm drinking lean. Lean is in my cup. Most of it is just being a follower. Yeah.
Okay, everybody's smiling, so everybody's heard of that but me, right? So I'm like, oh, never heard of that. Okay, so that's something not to take, right?
Yeah, not to take.
Okay, not to take. Okay, so again, I really want to get back to what Michael was saying about all this information out there, and it kind of connects to what Camille was saying. So we're getting information. You know, we're not doing, you know, this is your brain on drugs. So we are doing anti-drug commercials, but then at the same time, we're seeing how athletes some of them are doing really well taking drugs. We're going to come back and talk more about this in just a minute. Stick with us. Great. Okay, I'm going to bring you back to a discussion that we kind of started during the break, because beforehand we were talking about, about causes for drug use, like peer pressure and stress and things like that. And so our producer Jeff was saying to our panelists, how did you deal with it? So let me ask you, let's talk about peer pressure. Now, Leah, you're a recent high school grad. It's been, what, about a month?
Yeah.
So how did you deal with that?
I feel like I'm still dealing with it. It's not like as a past tense thing.
Okay.
I think a lot of times the whole partying atmosphere, like when you go to parties, it's easy for people to say, hey, do you want to try this, or try to introduce you to something, especially marijuana. I know that's really popular, but there are other drugs that kids my age I know do and whatnot. But I think the way of handling it and dealing with it is thinking about the consequences of you taking the drug, not only physically but mentally, and then how taking those drugs might affect your future. So.
And see, now that's a good point, but how hard is that as a young person? I mean, you just finished high school, but think back to maybe being 13 or 14. Just think of your 13 or 14-year-old selves, you know, putting off and saying, oh, you know, let me think about my future. I don't know, well, most 13 or 14-year-olds are kind of, I think, are thinking like, what's happening now? I want to be happy now, I want to feel good now, and, you know, the future seems so far off. What do you think?
It was hard. It was hard for me because, like I said, the following, I was one of the followers, and I saw them doing it. They didn't introduce it to me. I wanted to try it myself.
Does it seem like fun?
It seemed cool.
Okay.
That's the best way I could put it. It seemed cool, and I tried it, and I got hip to it, and I've dealt with it for a long time, but luckily that's, you know, in the past. But being a follower, that was my thing that I was struggling with.
So what was the point that turned you around? What was the turning point for you, Casey?
My children. My daughter told me, Mama, you shouldn't smoke. So I quit.
That's interesting. So your daughter really pointed that out to you.
Right.
So, and that's kind of the reverse of what we were talking about, where people see their parents doing certain things and they emulate them. So she must have seen something in you that she didn't like when you were getting high.
Yeah.
So
I was telling her that it was a bad thing, but I'm doing it myself. So
you were telling her, but then you were
Right.
doing something else.
Right.
Okay. Good for you. And so you turned that around. And so that's a good example for your children, really.
Right.
So that's excellent. Let's talk about stress, Camille. I mean, you're in college. There is a lot of stress, and I know there's a lot of drug use in college too. How does one deal with that?
Well, for me, I've never really been one to be swayed by other people's opinions or their judgments on whether I should take drugs or not. And I just know that there are alternative methods to deal with stress. And I think it's unfortunate that some people see drug abuse as the only route when it's not.
Well, how do you, or do you reach out to some of the students that you see are kind of going down that path?
Honestly, no, I haven't really reached out to anybody.
It's kind of hard to do that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, there are facilities on campus, and I'm sure it's the same for multiple campuses, that they have facilities and meetings for people that are suffering with drug abuse, but I rarely see people that are actually dealing with it attend these meetings and go to these counseling
Because
events.
why is that, do you think?
I don't think that they realize that they have an issue. I think that they think what they're doing is fine, and eventually they'll find out that it's not, but I don't really know how to tell these people that they might be heading down a wrong path.
Right, yeah, and it's kind of like maybe what Casey was saying, it seems cool, and so someone who feels like they're doing the right thing, even though you know where that path is going, like to not a good place, it might be hard for them to really listen to you. Michael, what about you? What do you think?
Well, dealing with the first question, like peer pressure, you just got to be tough because.
And that's hard.
Yeah. I mean, you will get laughed at. You will, get made fun of, but you just got to hold firm and just know who you are at the end of the day. I know I had to deal with that. And then you have to, keep in mind who is surrounding you. Who are these people that you putting yourself around, and are they really for you? You know what I mean? You just said no, but they making you go through hell just because you said no. So you just have to really put things in perspective. But as far as the college life and the drug use in college, yeah, it's a nature versus nurture type of thing, because I do feel like the environment actually they want you. Well, they make it easier for drug use. The prescription drugs, the Oxycontin, that was actually just recalled because something was up with it. You know what I mean? So it's like the main perpetrators, honestly, to me, is Big Brother. And we don't need so many people addicted to so many different types of drugs out here. And
so you're saying some of the drugs that are put out to help, legal drugs that are put out to help people, and they end up taking people down that path to the illegal drugs.
Without a doubt. This is my personal knowledge of what I know about it. The reason why, there's a heroin epidemic in Cincinnati.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about heroin. Yeah, we need to talk about that.
The reason why that's back, this is what word on the street. The reason why that's back is because the government did the recall on the Oxycontin and all the other things that was key ingredients in heroin. So they did a recall on all that government stuff. So now the actual real drug is back on the streets. And now you see the side effects of it.
Okay, hold on. We're going to come right back. Okay, because we're going to talk more about that, about heroin, what's on the street. This is really good information. So we've got to talk about this whole heroin thing. Okay. All right, we'll be right back talking about drugs and drug use. Back. We're here talking to young people about some challenges facing young adult, and today we're focusing on drug and drug use. So let me just quickly introduce again. So start with Camille, and then Michael, and then Leah, and then swing around to Casey, and then Camri. So welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, so we had just started talking about heroin because we really hadn't touched on that topic. And Michael, you were saying an issue was that some of the legal drugs that were used to fight heroin were taken back by the government.
Well, the legal drugs used to really fight depression, like Oxycontin. It's some other stuff, but I know Oxycontin.
And those are painkillers too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that was a key instrument in, I think they're called opiate usage.
Right.
And they took that out, and so the real thing is back. And you see the effects. They're treating it like a health issue now, but other drugs was not a health issue.
And so why is that?
Well, usually with heroin, you're dealing with needles, but you can get it in your system through various methods. But apparently it's an epidemic, and a lot of people are falling prey to it. But
yeah, it really, every day in the news we hear about heroin, and there are pictures of the paramedics giving Narcan to somebody to revive them. And they said a big problem is heroin is mixed with some other things that are really dangerous, and people who are heroin users really don't know what they're getting until they try it.
No, actually, I feel like if you want kids to not, take drugs, scare them. Not, this is your brain on drugs. Real quick, I was watching the program on another station, and this guy went to a rave. He tried to get drugs from somebody else. He didn't know the guy. He wanted Molly. The drug dealer sold him crystal meth. He was up for 3 days straight. Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's
and
not,
so you're saying by showing that, people might be afraid?
Exactly, because that's not what you want. That's not what I wanted. He were up for 3 days straight.
Aren't young people saying these things, though, or hearing these stories? I mean, I'm not getting the sense that, and it's not just young people taking drugs, but, don't people know these stories? Are they, are they not being scared? What do you think, Camri?
I can't really speak for them. I know for myself, if I'm thinking about my future, I wouldn't want to be a part of anything that's doesn't promote what I'm about. And I don't know. I know growing up, my parents were very strict. I couldn't go out, so I never really understood that lifestyle. When I got in college, people did try to persuade me to do those things, but it's not worth it at all. My future is more important. So
it sounds like a large part of it is just having that strength in yourself. But that's tough. So what about, and the other part that you guys keep talking about, looking at your future. So I wonder if that's a part of it, if some people try drugs because they don't see their future. I don't know. What do you think?
I think a huge part of it is a lot of people don't think about the consequences necessarily, and there's not a huge fear of consequences for, say, a drug like heroin as there has been for drugs in the past. I think more so when people think of heroin, they think, okay, if I get caught, I'm going to go to a treatment center and that's just going to be it. I'm not going to face any jail time or any prosecution for my drug use, but someone will try to help me, which is good in a sense, but at the same time it's kind of hurting people because they're not afraid of the consequences that they could face through law enforcement. They're more so concerned with, okay, well, I'll go to a treatment center and that'll be that. So, yeah.
So people aren't really thinking long term, and when the consequences they're thinking about might be legal consequences as opposed to, this could kill you, this could ruin your life. But how do we get that point across? And Jeff was saying it's like a whole Superman thing, like I'm tough and nothing's going to happen to me. I can, they were addicted, but I can try this and be fine.
I think, like she said, touching on what she was saying, if you have someone who is on drugs and you feel that they're trying to get off, or they're saying they're trying to get off, help them, push them as much as you can. Sometimes they may slip back and go back to the drugs, but don't give up on them. Push them to go, to the retirement classes, or, whatever they need to do to get help.
Okay, so that's really all you can do, I guess, is you can encourage them. Like, we're talking to Camille about some folks in college. Maybe just making that suggestion might be just a start. Putting that, maybe planting that idea that, maybe you do have a problem. You might not think you do, but maybe, maybe you do. Maybe just plant that seed so at least they might think about it. So what else? What else can we do?
I think to resolve those issues would maybe implement like mentorship programs in colleges or in schools, so they know the right path to follow when it comes to like drugs.
Right. Okay, good. And then, the other thing that I'm thinking about, there's a larger issue because somehow these drugs are getting into our neighborhoods. Have you guys thought about that? Like, how are they getting there? And the folks who are selling them aren't necessarily the people bringing them in. Like, what about that? Any reaction?
I feel like that's been the problem with drugs from day one. Like, they just been in our community, but like, how are we getting them? You know what I mean? They make it available to everybody, I guess. I don't know. But the fact that they're finding their way into our community is something that's been there since day one. It's hiding in plain sight, if you ask me.
Right. So maybe that's something, and I don't know, I don't have an answer to that, but it just strikes me that, the drugs are there, people are someone's making big money off of that. And those people who are making big money in our communities, there's somebody making even bigger money. And so, maybe that's something else, we really need to think about and teach our children, is that, you're just being a pawn for somebody. You're not being tough, you're not being cool, you're somebody's pawn, someone's using you to make money and it's hurting you. So what do you think? Why don't you all give us some advice that, in closing, that you would tell, other young people about drug use?
I think that there should be a number that they can call, if anonymous number that someone could call if they wanted to talk to someone, and get some kind of help, because just like the Crime Stoppers number, we see it all day, but all we can do is look at it happening and just keep moving on. People are tired of just looking at it happening and moving on.
Okay, all right, so we've got a break, but are we going to come back? So, yeah, we'll be back just for a quick wrap up. Okay, stick with us, we'll be right back in just a second. A lot of personal thoughts and a lot of sharing coming from Camille and Michael and Leah and Casey and Camri. I want to thank all of you for being here. Really appreciate your comments, your thoughts, your insights. It's an ongoing conversation, one you can now take home to the dinner table. Next week, we're going to talk about police relations in our community. Have a great week. Stay safe and stay positive.